Welcome back. President Trump launched one of his fiercest attacks yet on Attorney General Jeff Sessions. In an interview with The Hill, the president renewed his criticism of Sessions for his recusal from the Russia probe and suggested he's not happy with his work on things like immigration either. President Trump said, quote, "I don't have an attorney general. It's very sad." He went on to say Sessions performed very poorly in his confirmation, saying he was mixed up and confused, and people that worked with him for, a long time in the Senate were not nice to him. But he was giving very confusing answers. And yet, this is how President Trump responded afterward when asked if he will fire Jeff Sessions.
We are looking at lots of different things. I have a great cabinet. We have the greatest economy ever in the history of our country. So we're very happy with the way things are running, generally speaking.
Panel is back. Gabe, Aisha, and Susan. They're looking at lots of different things. Why doesn't he just fire Jeff Sessions?
It could not be more painfully obvious how many times various people around Donald Trump have told him, we know you don't like Jeff Sessions, but you can't fire this guy.
He calls him Mr. Magoo. He says he doesn't have an attorney general. It's very sad. He was very confused. I mean, he's putting him down at every opportunity.
Yeah, well, and it's very clear that Jeff Sessions knows that, by the way, if he quits, which a lot of other people would do in this situation, that the Senate wouldn't be able to confirm anyone else to replace him. So,
well, no, they could find somebody who's already been Senate confirmed and put him in place for at least a temporary period of time.
Temporary being the operative term there. And you can imagine the outcry, given really what this is all about is the Russia probe.
I don't know, Lindsey Graham outcry. Lindsey Graham the other day was saying, I'm sorry, I keep playing devil's advocate here, but Lindsey Graham the other day was saying that the president should fire him. And then I think a few others came out as well and said, hey, listen, it's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a few things to take note of here. First of all, he went back to his confirmation hearing, which was the reason why he ended up recusing himself. So it's interesting that he's going back to see what testimony he offered then. So that may be something that's going on in the legal team. So that's front and center on his mind.
So you think that because the president might have rewatched it, that's why it all came out today?
Right, because he can't, there's no filter. So, but the other thing is I think Jeff Sessions is also going to have the opportunity to rewrite his history a little bit. And he may be the one who says, I stayed. I dealt with this president, but I stayed because I wanted to protect the Mueller investigation. Because that's the only way. I mean, I'm not saying it's true. Listen, from a certain perspective, he's done everything the president wanted. He did that horrible policy separating children from their parents. He is not doing anything to help criminal justice reform. So he's doing the president's bidding on policy. But the president can't get over himself. This is all about him and all about the investigation. And it goes no further than the president looking at his
politically speaking, they are aligned.
He doesn't know what his job is. I mean, the president's acting like the attorney general is supposed to be his personal attorney.
No,
and that's
personal defender.
And that's his problem.
Because he can't get what he wants out of
Jeff Sessions has always been a boogeyman to those of us who didn't want him to have that job the first time he wanted that job, right? So he's actually doing his own policy bidding. And I think that he is one of those members of leadership in this administration who thinks that he is a patriot, who is doing whatever he can do on behalf of the United States despite this president. And so I think that he's in there doing stuff that we might not even be watching and that will have repercussions down the road, unfortunately.
Yeah, and by the way, if you're a Senate Democrat, you would be absolutely furious, and they can't believe they find themselves thinking this, if they got rid of Jeff Sessions, who, by the way, they can't stand. But at the same time, it's a few weeks until the midterms. You know what they're saying. Get rid of Jeff Sessions. Let's see what happens.
So it's not just Jeff Sessions that's getting the president's ire today. It's also the FBI. He described the FBI as a cancer and says one of his greatest achievements will be eradicating the cancer at the FBI. I hope to be able to put this up as one of my crowning achievements, that I was able to expose something that is truly a cancer in our country. The president of the United States is calling his FBI a cancer on society.
To attack your own government if you're the head of it. I mean, this has just gotten outrageous. This is the most unpatriotic president we've ever had, who literally has attacked every single federal governmental institution that he's supposed to be leading and guiding. And the fact that, people aren't up in arms about that and just recognizing how just not a patriot he is and how he's hugging dictators dictators, this whole other thing, is just beyond me.
But it's what you were saying earlier. It's not just that. It's also a fundamental misunderstanding of what the entire Department of Justice does. It's not supposed to be his personal defense. Yeah. And this is all about the Russia probe.
Exactly. Like, that's all great. I agree with both of you. He doesn't understand it, blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, they're investigating him. He's looking to declassify documents that the only purpose it would serve to do it is to get out in the press some basic evidence that could be used against him. Against him in the Russian probe.
What's interesting is that this may be another example of the president's own administration slow walking one of his requests. Take a listen to this from Ken Delaney and Mike Memoli of NBC News. In response, the Justice Department and the FBI announced Monday they would begin a declassification review of the material. That struck some intelligence officials as a stalling tactic, given that the president is the ultimate declassification authority, and he has already directed that the documents must be declassified.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because they've already been reviewed and redacted, and the president is wanting above and beyond what the FBI has already said would be inappropriate to release because of sources and methods, and that it will put our country in danger. But again, Donald Trump, number one priority.
So what happens if they kind of put the brakes on it and they go through the review process? Does the president wise up to it, or is it one of those scenarios where he doesn't remember it in a couple days, and then maybe a month from now he'll say, "What about my? I don't know. What about my documents?"
Well, if we do believe that this is being slow-walked in that way, which, by the way, would fit yet another pattern in this administration, where people who fashion themselves to be the adults in the room say, "He's going to forget about this."
Shadow presidency.
However, there's also reason to believe that that wouldn't happen in this case, specifically because one of the people that's been pushing this whole declassification effort is Devin Nunes, who's someone who still clearly, if it's not directly, somehow indirectly has the president's ear. So if this doesn't happen soon, there's a world in which you start to hear more noise from House Republicans, particularly in that
Let's not forget, Nunes or the president, neither one have actually read the documents. So they don't even know what's actually in it.
You know what I think is that is interesting. Jay Sekulow said the other day he has no idea what's in the documents. Right. He doesn't have a security clearance to read them. Devin Nunes has. Devin Nunes believes they're helpful, but then again, that the Republican memo wasn't so helpful to the president. Isn't it interesting that the Republicans are hanging their hat, and Natasha Bertrand of The Atlantic wrote about this, hanging their hat on Carter Page, a man that Russian spies called a useful idiot. I've stunned you into silence. I've stunned you into silence.
No, I mean it's a matter of convenience.
Yeah, exactly.
This is they're hanging their hat.
But can't that backfire?
Yes, of course it can.
But how much worse is it going to get? He's in the 30s. He's in the mid 30s. If he's not going to go below 32, 31.
He's not.
So I don't think. I think that would be really hard to get the Republican base in a midterm election year at that number.
Okay.
Right now. But it's just another bit of news, and it's a bit of noise, and that's what's so frustrating for so many people, especially journalists like you two, because there are so many really important stories to cover, but things like this just get blown over by what's going to happen in the Kavanaugh scenario tomorrow, and then that's going to get blown over by what Donald Trump says about Sessions 2 days from now, and it just
for an administration that complains about us not covering what they want us to cover, they have a president who's constantly dragging us back and forcing us to focus on the Russia investigation, on his fight with Jeff Sessions, on his Supreme Court nominee, and the things he says about him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, go on and on and on.
Yeah, sometimes it's pretty clear that he fashions his most important role as the nation's assignment editor. If we're not writing about him and what he's doing, then we're doing it wrong.
The Republican base cannot continue to win national elections. This was a fluke. The Donald Trump election was a fluke, right? So I don't know
you say right as if I'm agreeing with you. I'm not so sure.
I think it was a fluke. So I don't know what the Republicans' game is for their next national election, but this hanging their hat onto this president who is literally, like you said, I'm interested in what's going to happen with suburban women, who has people fleeing away from him except for that 32% of the base. I don't know how they think they're going to continue to win big by hanging on to him.
They're not.
They're going to have to let him go at some point, and I'm just curious when that point's going to be.
I guess the hope is that the whole country is so fractured that nobody can agree on any one person, and then the person with the most of the minority ends up being the winner.
What an uplifting hope.
Great.
Yay. Gabe, Aisha, and Susan, don't go anywhere.
Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.